The Middle of the Storm by Tony Angelo. The house huddled in the rain, a ghostly outline, its windows smeared with water veins, the wind whining through the torn and shattered eaves as if some voice from the past. I reached the threshold, my breath misting in the cold air, my hands shaking with something other than fear. The storm broke with a ferocity that was unnatural, as if it were hauling me back to this place, to this moment in time, which had always seemed to me like a warning. I stepped inside, the door creaked beneath my touch, and the cold scent of damp wood and rot clung to the air. My boots echoed against the warped floorboards as I moved deeper into the house, the flashlight flickering against the shadows. I didn't know why I had come back. Part of me had hoped never to set foot here again. But the past has a way of calling a person back, no matter how hard he tries to get away. The house had belonged to my family for generations, its history buried beneath layer upon layer of secrets. My father had never spoken of it. My mother had refused ever to set foot inside. But I had always known the truth. Something had happened here. I didn't know what, but I had to find out. The air grew cold as I reached the hall, my fingers brushing against the cracked wallpaper. The storm was in full bloom outside. But in this house, time seemed to stand still, the house itself holding its breath. I stopped at the end of the corridor, and my heart hammered in my chest. Then I heard it, a whisper, right at the edge of my hearing. My blood ran cold. I turned, my breath catching in my throat, and something moved in the darkness. A shadow. A presence. Then, with a sudden deafening crack, the door slammed shut behind me with a force that sent a shockwave through my ribs. The lights flickered, and something unseen pressed against the wood, groaning and waiting. Echoes of a forgotten past. The storm that had once haunted my dreams was now raging in reality, but this time, I wasn't running. I was returning. The house, with creaking bones and forgotten memories, was more than just a place. It was a memory I had tried to bury, a truth I refused to face. Now, standing in its shadow, I knew why this storm had led me here. It started with a name, Jordan, my younger sibling. Once we had played in this house, chasing each other through its halls and pretending to be explorers in some forbidden land. But that summer, Jordan vanished. The town had whispered about the storm, of the rain that turned the streets into rivers. My parents searched for days, their faces hollow with grief. They told me he had been taken by the water, but I never believed it. Jordan had always been cautious, even as a child. He wouldn't have wandered into the storm without reason. I had spent years digging through fragments of memory, searching for the truth they wouldn't tell me. And now the house was giving it up. The whispers in the dark, the slamming door, they were not tricks of the mind. They were echoes, remnants. As I moved further in, my flashlight swept around the walls. Faded newspaper clippings there, stories I had read 100 times without making any sense of them. One, the photo of Jordan's disappearance, showed a boy standing in the yard, the sky bruised with dark clouds. I'd seen the photo 1,000 times and missed the thing I should have noticed. The house, standing in the background, was the same house in which I now stood. I had returned to uncover the truth. But it would appear the house wasn't about to give it up easily. A storm howled through the eaves, in warning. And in the silence between the thunder, there was a sound something that didn't quite belong to either wind or house. A voice, my own voice, calling out from the past, and now in the present waiting to be answered. The truth in silence. The more I sought it out, the more I knew it was never just a memory, but a prison. A place where the past had been locked away, and now it asked to be dug up. I went further into the house, my flashlight casting long shadows into the walls. The air was thick with something I couldn't name, something that hadn't been there the last time I had been here. My instincts led me to this room before my reason did. A door half opened in the corner of the hall, hinges rusted with time, swung loose. I opened it, and immediately the sense of old paper and dust came toward me. The books, journals, newspaper clippings, those memories I never had been allowed to touch lined up on the wall. I found my father's journal sitting on the desk, its pages yellowed with time. I opened it, my hands unsteady. July 13th. He's gone, the first entry read. My breath caught. The date was the last one Jordan had been seen. The words were his. My father had written this. But why had he never told me? There were more entries, each one more fragmented than the last, filled with questions, fears, and a relentless search for something I still didn't understand. A sound from behind me made my skin crawl. I whirled, my pulse pounding in my ears. The room was empty, yet the presence I'd felt before was stronger now, pressing against the air like an unseen hand. I moved toward the far wall, my fingers brushing against the wallpaper. Something was wrong. The pattern had changed. I peeled it back, and beneath it was an old photograph of Jordan standing at the threshold of this very house, his face wrinkled with fear. The storm outside was at its worst. The house had groaned under the weight of the wind as though the wooden frame were alive. Then I heard it again, the whisper. But this time it was clearer. "Leave it be. You don't even know what is true." I turned, my flashlight flickering between the shadows. The voice was real. Not a trick of the mind. It was part of the house, part of the past I had tried so hard to forget. And as the silence settled around me, I knew one thing with utter certainty. Jordan hadn't died in the storm. Something took him. And now the house was trying to keep me from learning what. Ripples of yesteryear. When I was younger, the house had always been my haven. It was a world all its own, where Jordan and I could be anyone or anything. We built forts in the attic, told ghost stories and monster tales, swore we'd never grow up. Now, as I moved through the broken rooms, I knew a different truth. This house wasn't just a place of childhood fantasy, but a prison of memories I'd never worked through. Jordan had always been the adventurous one, the one who could make me believe in things, even when I wasn't sure I did. He loved that house as if it held secrets only he was meant to understand. I remembered this summer before he vanished, how I had been in his room, watching him dig through an old trunk. An expression was etched upon his face, fear. He told me not to ask, that it was something he had to do alone. I shrugged it off at that time, thinking it was just another one of his mysterious games. But now I knew better. He was seeking something. The very thing I was seeking now. I had found a box beside the fireplace, full of dust and unopened for years. Inside were letters, old sketches, and a worn map of the house. I touched the lines with my fingers, noting the symbols circle and cross like ancient burials. One cross was circled in red. I have never seen it before. I followed it down a corridor I had never ventured. At the end, a door was ajar, its handle rusted from time itself. I pushed it open, my pulse hammering. It was colder inside, the smell of damp earth much stronger. The walls were covered in newspaper clippings, Jordan's face staring back at me from decades past. I stumbled toward the middle of the room, where a small table sat. On it, a journal. I opened it, my hands shaking. July 13th. They know. I can feel it. They've been watching. I have to disappear. My breath caught. Who was they? Why would Jordan have written that? I turned the page to continue. I cannot run forever. The house remembers, and it will never let me go. The truth was unwinding itself before me, and I didn't know whether or not I wanted to actually know what it meant. I looked around the room, the dust settling, and felt something go with a shift. The house was watching me, and it wasn't done yet. Something stirred in the shadows. The echo of time. The rain pounded, but the house was silent. Not just the walls and the floor, but the air itself hushed, as if it had paused to hold its breath. I stood in the center of the room, the journal clutched in my hands. And for the first time in my life, I couldn't remember how I had gotten here. The memories tugged at the edges of my mind, but they were slipping, like sand running between my fingers. Then I saw it. A light flickered at the edge of the room. A shadow moved. Not like the house breathed with the wind, but something else. Something deliberate. I turned toward it, my pulse hammering in my ears. And there, in the farthest corner, a closed door that had not been there before. I crossed the room, my breath shallow, and pressed my hand against it. The wood was cool beneath my fingers, as if it had been waiting. I pushed it open. The room beyond was vacant. No walls, no ceiling, just a big blackness. And within that blackness, I saw her, Jordan. She, or rather he, stood against the void, his hair damp from the storm, his eyes filled with something I'd never seen in them. Not fear, not sorrow, just understanding. "You knew," I whispered. Jordan nodded. "You were never looking in the right place." I took one step forward, the floor solid beneath my feet, and suddenly I remembered. The storm, the house, the Jordan vanished. I'd been here. I'd seen it all. I'd been it. The storm had not taken Jordan, it had taken me. I stumbled backward as the truth clicked into place. My whole life, I'd been running from something that didn't have a name, pursuing a past that had never belonged to me. The house hadn't been a prison for Jordan. It was mine all along. I died the night the storm hit, and the house had kept me anchored in its walls, trying to piece together what had gone on. Behind me, the door slammed shut, lights flickered, and I was alone once more. But this time, I comprehended. The house didn't just contain Jordan's memories, it was mine. And I hadn't come here to find the truth. I had come here to become it.